Can you believe it's been just over 2 years since the word lockdown became part of everyday language? At the end of 2019, a face mask was something we wore to a fancy dress party. LFT was an abbreviation for left, and social distancing was something we did to people who irritated us. So much has happened since that first lockdown back in March 2020. And for most of us, life has changed, the world has changed, and we have changed. For many, the events of the last 2 years have been extremely challenging and difficult. We've been pushed to our limits. We've experienced heartbreak and difficulty. Our emotional, spiritual, and mental health has been at risk, as well as our physical health. But in the midst of the pain and the difficulty, there's been moments of joy, of hope, and life. It's been a real roller coaster of a journey with highs and lows. So we want to help you process a bit of what you've experienced and encountered over these last 2 years. We want to draw attention to things that we've lost and the things we found. It's important we're able to acknowledge what and even who we've lost, to grieve and to mourn. But it's also important to identify the things that we found so that we can hold on to them and take them with us into the future that lies ahead. So let's get started. You might want to grab a pen and paper or open the Notes app on your phone. We're going to start with lost. Now, perhaps you want to write that down as a heading. What are the things that you've lost during this pandemic? What did you have at the start of 2020 that you don't have now? Let's look at this under 5 headings. The first one is activities. Now, that's things like hobbies and interests. I love to play golf, and during lockdown, I couldn't play and I really missed it. Perhaps there's an activity that you used to do that you've stopped and you haven't got back into it. Now, that's something you've lost. If you have something in this area, write it down. The next area is work or school. Now, perhaps you lost your job or a specific responsibility at work. You might have missed out on a key ending to a phase of your education. Maybe you left school during this time, and chances are that that wasn't the ending that you were hoping for. Have a think about your work or your school life and acknowledge anything that you've lost in this area. The third area is people. Most of us know people who've died over the last 2 years, whether that's COVID related or not. And the challenge of life under restrictions made it difficult for us to say goodbye. But we've also lost contact with people, friends who were there at the end of 2019 who, for whatever reason, are not in our lives anymore, or at least not in the way they used to be. Who have you lost during this time? Add their names to your list. The fourth area is faith. How has this time impacted your faith? Where are you at with God right now? Has your belief in him or your understanding or trust in him diminished? Perhaps you stopped connecting into church or not in the way that you used to. Maybe you've switched to a different church. How has the events of the last 2 years tested your faith? And the final area is the catch-all of other. Is there anything else that you've lost? Write it down, capture it and acknowledge it. It might be a good idea to hit pause now and spend a few minutes reflecting on each of these areas: activities, work, people, faith and other. Write down the things you've lost under each heading. There might not be something in every category, that's okay. Well, now that you've finished your list, take a look at the things that are on it and be aware of how they make you feel. Don't try to avoid the pain or the brokenness. What items on your list stand out to you? Perhaps they're the ones that cause you the most pain. Circle them or highlight them. We have a tendency in our Western culture to move on quickly when we experience pain or loss. We try not to think about it. We just want to get back on with our lives and get life back to normal. But when we experience loss, significant loss, our normal changes. We change, we are different, and life is different. We can't get back to normal because that normal doesn't exist anymore. We are now in the new normal. And there's a beauty that can only be found in pain and brokenness. The darkest moments of my life have also been moments where I'm more aware of the presence of God. I've experienced comfort and peace that is way beyond anything I could imagine or create from within myself in moments like this. At times, it's like God has been standing up inside me, giving me the strength and hope I need to keep going. There is beauty in pain and brokenness because we find ourselves in a place where all we can do is depend on God. I love these words from Jesus. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Allow yourself space and time to acknowledge what you've lost and the impact that that's had on you. And allow Jesus to comfort you, to give you rest. He wants to meet you and minister to you in the midst of the loss. And chances are he won't take away that pain, but he can give you hope. There's also been times of great joy over the last 2 years. We're different today because of the things we've lost, but we're also different because of the things we've found. So let's identify what these things are. Create a new note with the title Found. And we're going to go through the same headings as before. So the first is activities. What are the new things that you started doing during this season? Perhaps you took up a new hobby or learnt a new skill. Maybe you developed a new routine with your family. We had a cooked breakfast every Saturday morning for about a year. That was really good. Capture those new things that you found so that you can hold on to them and be thankful for them. And what about work or school? Perhaps working from home was great for you. Maybe it gave you a new rhythm, which meant you'd be able to spend more time at home. Or maybe you adopted a slower, simpler pace of life that you want to hold on to, or at least be thankful for during the time that you were able to have that routine. And what about people? Have you made new friendships or connections during this time? Who are the people who you are closer to now? I made a bunch of friends whom I've never met or didn't meet for a long time. We connected online over Zoom. And it was fun to meet up with them in person recently. There were some people whom I was certain were way older than me, but when I saw them in real life, I realised I was older than them. Another friend of mine commented that we're all the same size on Zoom. And what about your faith? How has your faith been stretched and grown over the last 2 years? Where have you stepped out of your comfort zone? Where have you seen God at work? Where have you lent into faith disciplines to keep you close to Jesus in this time? And the last area is other. Is there anything else that you found during this season that you're thankful for? Perhaps you exercised more, or you discovered places to go right on your doorstep that you didn't know existed. Again, you might want to hit pause now and give yourself some space and time to reflect on these areas. Now take a look at that list. Be aware of how each item makes you feel. What things stand out to you? Circle or highlight them. Perhaps these are things you want to ensure you build into your life. Maybe they're things that you want to protect and prioritise as you go into the new normal that lies ahead. There's a great verse in Revelation. That's the last book in the Bible, and it's written by John. He's one of Jesus' closest friends. And it records a dream that John had. Lots of this dream points to the future and to the return of Jesus. I love these words in chapter 21. He, that's Jesus, will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. That is the ultimate future that is waiting for us. Now, the us is a tricky one. The overarching message of the Bible shows us that the people who Jesus will do this for, are the people who choose to believe in him, to put their hope and their trust in him. It's the people who don't allow the challenges of life to throw them off course. That when life hits and they experience pain and loss, they don't let go of their faith in Jesus. Instead, they choose to hold on to him. The events of the last 2 years have been full of loss. Some of us have lost our faith during this time. We might not be able to pinpoint the moment it happened, but slowly, over time, we allowed ourselves to drift, and now we find that we're far from God. But the last 2 years have also been full of highs and joy. There's been a bunch of great stuff that's come out of the season. And some of us have found faith or a depth of faith that wasn't there before. We are owning our faith. We recognise it's our responsibility. And as we step out in faith, we see God at work in us and in the world around us. So what about you? What have you lost and what have you found? And how has this impacted your faith and your relationship with Jesus? As this season draws to a close, hopefully, and a new one emerges, what are the things you're taking with you to help you to continue to grow, to be stronger? And when it comes to your faith, what's your next step? It's a choice. It's your choice. So what are you going to choose? My prayer for you is that you choose to trust God even when it's difficult. My prayer for you is that you choose to follow Jesus where he leads you even when it's challenging. And my prayer for you is that you choose to place him at the centre of your life even when you're tempted to place yourself there.